Welcome to the Contagious Victories podcast. Each week, we talk inspiration, explore possibilities, and share insights from creative perspectives. I'm Tori Blackman, and I'm here to remind you that your purpose in life is to celebrate the victories, because victories are contagious. You may have heard the saying, dream big, pray boldly, and trust God to do the impossible. So many of us have huge dreams that seem so out of reach or even too impossible to take seriously. But what if I told you that with the right mindset and guidance, you can live out your dreams in this reality? In today's podcast, we are discussing the power of dreaming big, the importance of courageously praying boldly, and how to trust God to make the impossible possible. Welcome back to the Contagious Victories podcast. I am your host, Victoria B. Glass, and like I said, I'm so excited to have this conversation with our guest today and share it with you. Today, I'm talking with the talented and creative India Jade McCue. She is an artful-meets-documentary wedding photographer of over 11 years, specializing in crafting effortless images and teaching other photographers how to do the same. But her talents don't stop there. She is an award-winning actress, the host of the India and Stuff podcast, wife to filmmaker Ian McCue, and proud cat mom. She lives in Columbus, Ohio, where she spends most of her time sipping on homemade lattes, treasure hunting at the local thrift store, and planning her next trip out west. India is a graduate of Columbus College of Art and Design. She got her BFA there in 2019. And most importantly, she is a Jesus person. Get ready to be inspired by her victory story as we discuss her techniques and advice for aspiring photographers, creatives, and anyone who is courageous enough to pursue the big dreams that God gave them. All right, Contagious Victories listeners, I've got an extraordinary guest on the show today, someone I have been wanting to talk to for a couple months now. I am talking with India McCue and her business, India Jade Photo, and all of her creative projects we're going to dive into in this conversation. India, welcome to Contagious Victories.
Hi, Tori. It's good to see you again, even though it's virtual this time, but such a cute intro. Thank you for hyping me up.
Yes. Well, I know that when we first met, one of the first conversations we had was about our love for creativity and creating films, projects, things with the video camera. And I know you have a photo business that we're going to talk about, but that stood out to me. So again, I mean it when I say that this is a conversation I've been wanting to have for a minute, and you're an extraordinary person. You don't meet a whole lot of people who have big dreams like that and are willing to talk about them. So I just want to say thank you for being so courageous, and welcome to the show. Yes.
Of course. I'm so glad to be here. I just need to tell you, I love the name because I feel like a lot of times people, this is my little tangent for the day, people sometimes are just like, look at all these things that I did on my own, as if like we just arrived at something amazing. But that the fact that it's like courageous is like there's an element of courage and bravery and struggle and uphill battle to it, that it's so true for anyone who's come from anything and then made a business or made something happen. It takes a lot of work to get there. So just seeing the name of your podcast too, when you reached out, I was like, oh, I love Contagious.
No, it's okay. I was going to say, I almost named it Courageous, but it is contagious. However, I always emphasize just the courage, like you were saying, that it takes to show up. And it's not an overnight thing. Like I think there's a quote that's like that you're a 12-year overnight success or something like that, where nothing ever happens like overnight. It's the work that you put into it. But I, real quick tangent again.
My dyslexic brain.
No, you're fine. When I started Contagious Victories, it was pre-pandemic. It was 2019 I think it was like July of 2019. So of course I should have probably named it Courageous instead of Contagious because that word kind of like, but then once, everything happened, it was like, I'm going to turn that word and make it
courageous, to talk about. So
Yes.
it does go with that.
Well, either way, contagious or courageous, victories do spread. And I love the way that you've kind of phrased this podcast and are ready to like share stories about that because it's inspiring. It helps people go. So anyway, I love it. Thanks for having me.
While we're talking about names of things, I know your name is India McCue, but India Jade, is that your middle name or is that just the name of your photography?
Yes.
I was curious about that.
Yeah, that's my middle name.
Cool.
People like to ask where my name came from. I don't have a good story. My family wasn't, they weren't missionaries in India. They haven't been to India. They just kind of liked creative names. So me and my siblings kind of have unique names and I love it.
It's
Honestly, it's one of the
beautiful.
things that I'm like, yeah, I'm like, okay, I like my name. That's kind of fun. It helps me stand out a bit.
Well, it's a beautiful name and you take beautiful photos. And I want to talk about your
Thank
business.
you.
So, you have, from what I was looking at online, you have a very candid style and it's very polished to be so candid. And I
Hmm.
wanted to talk about your style. And I also wanted to ask a couple questions about how you got to that style because you've been doing this for
Yeah.
a little while now. You've been in the photography game for a couple years, haven't you? Isn't it like 10, 11?
11.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Isn't that crazy? The thing is, people are always surprised by that because I started photography when I was a teenager. I like pretty early on, my parents were like, hey, if you want like a car or to go to college or anything, like that's on you. Like we grew up kind of lower income. So I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. But I started thinking really craftily at age like 13, 14. I was like, all right, what can I do to like start making money? Because I want to drive a car and I want to go to college one day. So I started saving my babysitting dollars. And then eventually I had a camp counselor who she was like, I'm not going to go to college. I'm going to do photography. She was a few years older than me. And I was like, I wonder if she can do it. Like, I wonder if I can do it. So I kind of like saved some money, bought my first DSLR camera, and then just started shooting friends, family, offering senior pictures for people for free. And then word got out, and when I was 16, I was posting stuff on Facebook, and some girl saw it and was like, "Hey, I'm getting married. Would you shoot my wedding?" So I shot my first wedding when I was 16, had no idea what I was doing. But now at 27, it's fun to look back at like 11 years of business and be like, yeah, I've been shooting weddings for a long time. I've done a couple hundred or more weddings at this
Wow.
point. So I'm very self-taught as far as like the early years. I had a lot of DIYing going on my end. I was editing in a software called PicMonkey, if you
I
remember
love
that little
PicMonkey.
tool.
Yes.
So there was no Photoshop subscription for me. There was no Lightroom. There wasn't much going on with that. But what I will say is like I had to learn as I grew. And every wedding that I shot, age 16, age 17, age 18, I'm learning, oh, okay, this is how other people's portfolios online kind of look. These are the shots this couple's expecting. Maybe I should try this setting with my camera. Maybe I should learn this thing called RAW and shoot in that format that people are talking about. Maybe I've heard a lot about Lightroom. Maybe I should try a free trial. Like
Yeah.
you could go into it and be like, I know what I need to know. I'm going to approach it like this. I've seen enough on Pinterest and I'm just going to do it. Or you could come in with that spirit, but a little teachability and be like, I'm here to learn. I want a second shoot for a photographer ahead of me. I want to jump in on a course that someone's teaching. I want to like take the steps to learn and be malleable through the whole process. So I definitely did it the non-traditional route. If I was going to give advice to anyone who's just starting their photography business, especially at that young age, I would say second shoot for someone first. I didn't do that until like last year.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I had never second shot for anyone. I just kind of jumped in. I was like, okay, I'm just doing this. Like, um, so I would say do that. Get on a couple wedding days. Feel confident with your gear is a huge, huge one. And if you don't, YouTube University, like start learning. Or if you want to take it to a next level, there's usually camera shops or photographers like myself will like offer coaching or help people learn their camera. Or if you're like, I want to go to college and learn photography from a professor, you can also do that. I did do a couple classes in photography and like the old school, like darkroom film photography.
Ooh, that's
Um,
exciting.
yeah, so that was a lot of fun to
Okay.
kind of like experience that. But yeah, I would just say like the biggest thing when you're just starting out and struggling to feel confident in your work is like once you know your gear and you know how to serve those people, start pricing yourself with that level of confidence, because I knew that I didn't know what I was doing the first wedding. I knew how to use a camera at that point. I knew how to take photos of my friends. But on the first wedding day, I was like, I'm not really sure how this goes. I wasn't even sure if I could eat the food. I had to like text my dad. I was like, can you bring me McDonald's? Like, I didn't
That's
want to
funny.
ask that couple if I could eat their food at the reception. But I charged $150. I was there for 10 hours and I provided hundreds of photos. And so from that, then I asked a photographer, hey, what do you think? She's like, oh, no, 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 no. She's like, you did such a good job with these photos. You could easily charge 850 at the next one. So I did.
Yeah.
And then I go back to her and say, what do you think? And she goes, oh, easily charge 1,000 at the next one. So you can kind of like, you don't want to just jump in with a number and have no market experience, no research, no reference. But you also don't want to say, hey, I'll do all this work and knowing that it's going to be a good product and be like, for $10, $100. So there's that balance of like keeping it on par with what you know in your heart you're providing for them, and also being at a flexible price point that's like, hey, I'm still learning, I'm still growing. And the customer's they're gonna get what they pay for. They're gonna be like, hey, you're still learning, and that's okay with us. We just want a chill, simple wedding in the country. Well, you're in our budget and the photos are gonna look great. So yeah, that's kind of my overview for just starting. But it's definitely scary and takes a lot of like mental breaking out of that thought of like, am I good enough? Am I allowed to do this? Are they going to like me? Whew, put all that to the side and start like doing the work and showing up, and you'll be proud of yourself that you did.
Well, I love what you said about how in the very beginning there were things, softwares, and like resources that maybe you didn't know that you needed, but you
Mm-hmm.
just started looking into it, and YouTube University and figuring out your camera and things like that. So there's that, there's that old saying that's like, if there's a will, there's a way. So, if
Mm-hmm.
you have the desire to pursue something, you're not going to just jump out and be an expert. However, there's resources that are available, like the free trials and things like that, where, you can get your hands a little bit dirty and then figure it out and realize if you want to go further or if you want to maybe change from PicMonkey to photo, like things like that. But
Yeah.
you would never know if you didn't start with what is available. And so if anyone's
Yes.
listening who's thinking, how do I get started? I have a camera and I'm trying to get into wedding photography or any kind of photography, then, go ahead and just start taking photos and you'll find out what
Mm-hmm.
you need more of later. And in the second little tangent, what I heard you say too is know what you're worth and also be willing to grow. And God, I feel like always
Yes.
gives us that promise of like, look, I'm not going to leave you somewhere and then
Mm.
just leave you hanging. Like there's going to be other resources when you get there, or other people who can show you, teachers, mentors, things like that, people who can show you the way, or you'll figure it out with this new resource or whatever. And then you're going to just keep growing and keep doing it until one day you wake up and you're at 11 years. So love that you are suggesting that courage again and saying that you've got to be willing to learn. And also it's the learning that I feel like people who I talk to on here and people who are in our community, sometimes it can be a little scary to learn, but I think at the end of the day, we all agree it's the most fun thing about what we do is that that there are resources out there that we haven't heard of, or people who are mentoring and things like that, who are willing to help and share what they know, because that's the exciting part is when you grow.
100%. And you'll surprise yourself too. I think I was surprised at my capacity to learn, because I, very much grew up in like I was the artsy kid in class. I was homeschooled before I went to school in middle school, and I was like always like kind of isolated, kind of like doodling as a kid. I was drawing fashion stuff and like always like pegged as that artsy girl. And then I go to school and everyone's like academic or they're a really good athlete, and that's fine. But I was like, I'm just not that way, so I must not be smart. I must not be good at whatever. That's kind of like the lie that I told myself growing up. So it's like when I started digging into photography and then realizing it's not just like, oh, I'm a girl with a camera. It's like, this is a real
Yes.
business and this can turn into a profitable source of income for me and my family. It's cool to see my own progress in that and to be like, whoa, I'm scared. I don't know if I can learn Lightroom. And then be like, no, like I can. I have the capacity to learn. I'm going to do the work. I'm going to invest in this course. I'm going to jump in and put my feet to the ground. And then when I look back, I'm like, I'm proud of me. Like, look at that.
It's so empowering. Yes.
Yeah, we tell ourselves these things like, I'm not good at this, or I'm not pretty enough to be on social media and talk about my business, or my photos aren't like that person's, or I need the right gear before I can start. And it's like the best advice is like, use what you've got, start where you are, use what you have, and then move in confidence that, like, especially if you're walking with the Lord, pray over all of it and be like, Lord, you have given me dreams and desires to create community, create artwork, create memories, celebrate people, celebrate life. Let's go. Like, let's use what we've got instead of waiting to arrive somehow magically. Like, you don't just wake up and be like, I'm here.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, oh, you have to wake up and say, what is in front of me? What can I use? And how can I make it better?
I feel like when you jump out and
Yeah.
you start living in that truth that you are, who you are, and that you can do anything that God gives you strength to do, you start attracting more creative people to you. And I found out recently via your Instagram that you're married to a creative. So I
Yes.
also feel like we have that in common. We're both married to another creative. And that is one of the most exciting, other than learning new things, that's one of the most exciting things in my life, I feel like. And it seems like that same excitement radiates from your feed and from you whenever I feel like I hear you talking about your significant other. So tell me a little bit about y'all's story.
No, yes, my best friend. I
Oh,
love him. Yeah, so we've been married for 3.5 years. We got married in COVID, so not a fun time
oh,
with that. But we did have a great, like, we were just like, we're ready. Like, why are we going to wait until this unforeseen circumstance may or may not end at any point? So we did a safe little COVID wedding, which was great. But yeah, he's the best. It was honestly something that when I was dating around in college, like, I was very particular about who I was going to be with. I was like, listen, I need a man of God. I need someone who takes their faith seriously. And in my head, I don't think I knew what career they would have, but I definitely did not think it was going to be another creative. I was like, I'm going to be the artsy one. No idea what kind of adventure could come from this relationship. But I was like, there is something about this. And I think God was protecting me from the just allure of like, let me look for something better. Let me look for something more stable. That might not be the case for everyone. Maybe there are different things that we're all looking for. But as far as personality, I was like, this is the person that like instantly felt like my best friend. So we're going to move forward with this.
oh,
And then a year later we were engaged. So
that is so sweet.
we just, yeah, it was just like such a fun thing to be like, wow, like I didn't think I'd be with another creative, but I'm really glad that a lot of our work and lives have now intertwined. We do a lot of photo and film together. And it's just been a really great adventure to be married to him. So yeah.
Oh, that's such a good story, India. That is so sweet. And it really shows too just how both of you have stepped out in faith and taken on the beautiful challenge of what this whole life is about, which is just going with what you feel like God is calling you to. And it sounds like, you had those choices, but it really was obvious that you wanted to pursue a creative life. Not that the creative life is unstable. One of the things I love about it is that it's a lot of projects that come up that you're like, if you would have told me this, I would have not even believed it. So it feels like your story with your husband is very much like that, where y'all both are doing what you love and y'all are both happily, married and doing what you love, which I know.
Yeah.
I think that as someone in a relationship with another creative, it seems like it's too good to be true. But when you're living it, you're like, no, like this is exactly what I feel like God is wanting me to do. And my mom came over yesterday and she was like asking me about work and stuff. And I was like, well, that's one of the things about being a creative is like, I can work tonight and we can go to lunch, for Mother's Day or whatever. And so I just love that is a part of the creative journey is having that like unknown element, but having the faith paired with it means that you're always on track and you're always in the right place. And, God's leading the way. So you don't have that feeling of instability, I guess is the only word I feel like comes to mind, but it doesn't really encapsulate it very well. But
and it's true. I think there's a lot to it that, I mean, it is hard. There are times where it's like, because I got a degree in something else. He got a degree in something similar. We had stable jobs for a while and we're like doing our photo film businesses on the side. And then during 2022, I was discerning leaving my other job at a very great nonprofit because my side hustle of photography was kind of like popping off. And I was like, hey, I think I need to go do this full time. So pray about it, discern it, whatever. And then I put in my 2 weeks and I exit that job. The week that I leave, so I'm already like, okay, this will be kind of crazy, but at least my husband's holding down his film job at this university. the week that I put my 2 weeks in, Ian comes to me and is like, "Hey, I think I need to leave my job." And I was like, "Excuse me? Like, only one of us could be unstable right now."
I had that same thing.
And
That's
so,
so weird that we have so much in
yes,
common. Yeah. Go ahead. I want to hear the rest,
yes.
but I can
No, I
relate.
need to hear more about yours too. Yes, we both quit our jobs within 1 month of each other. So June and July of 2022, we were fully running our own businesses. So it was thrilling in the sense that we were like, okay, Lord, you are in position to provide. Like, this is all you. But also, it was a little scary because it was like, okay, like we are responsible for if we eat next month, we're responsible for our mortgage. Like, there's no guaranteed paycheck. There's no clock in, clock out, wake up at this time, show up at this time. It's all on us. So the good thing is like we could choose our own road trip. We got to go and like build out schedules. So on a random Wednesday, we're like in Maine, hanging out on a boat with our godparents, having fun. But then we're also working until like 2 a.m.,
Yeah.
like editing weddings and like emailing content and contracts and like posting every day on social media. So there's this balance of like, whew, there's a lot of blessing, there's a lot of hardship to it as well. But at the end of the day, it's like you're just in either, nothing is stable. And I think people often think like, oh, I could never own my own business or I could never be a creative. It's so unstable. And it's like, yes, but also as we learned in COVID, so are jobs.
Yeah.
Jobs come and go. You could always get let go. Like your career could just, kind of take a shift, or maybe your company gets bought out. Like nothing is for certain. And that's where I think for people who are like, have a relationship with the Lord, that's where that faith comes in even more. Cause you're like, none of this is really secure. We just have to walk in faith and say, all right, Lord, here are the skills that I've got. Here's the gift that you've given me. Like, let's go. Like, lead me to the next thing and we'll go on from there. So, yeah.
I love that you brought that up too. It makes every moment that you're doing something that doesn't feel aligned, it makes it so clear
Mm-hmm.
that you need to get back to following what God has told you and has placed on your hearts and where he's leading you.
Yeah.
And that's so beautiful. That's really valuable information. So thank you for sharing that part too. And
Oh, of course.
I was looking at your website and saw that you're
Yeah.
also a mentor and you offer mentorships.
Yeah.
So it doesn't surprise me at all that you are so good at pointing out things like that. Can you talk a little bit
Mm.
about your mentorship?
Yeah. No, it's a good question. So I've been doing photography for a while, and it's been really fun to like watch the books pop off with weddings. I have, like you said, I'm based in Columbus, Ohio, but I've got some this year in Los Angeles and Kentucky. I am always trying to get one in New York City. I don't think I have one this year for that. But I'm always traveling because I love traveling, experiencing new things, and like taking my photography to new places. I think I have like 34 weddings this year, which is kind of crazy. But because everything's been taking off, a lot of the time people approach me and go, "Hey, how do I do that too? You're a self-started, business owner. How do you go from 0 to 100? How do you go from a girl with a camera to a profitable, sustainable business model where you're constantly booking higher end weddings and traveling the country?" So I've been having a lot of people reach out. And so I was like, you know what? I should offer to educate, because as someone who went to college for a different degree, I went for graphic design, but I was going to minor in photography. And like I said, the classes were good, but they weren't based on how to use your photography skill to market and turn it into a business. It was very fine arts focused,
Mm.
which is fine and has a place. But I think in today's economy, most people are trying to find a way to make a skill marketable. And so I was like, I think instead of like teaching at a collegiate level or encouraging people to go spend 4 years and thousands of dollars on a college education in photography, I could do one-on-one sessions. That way people get mentorship opportunities that are one-on-one education, and they can say, hey, I'm struggling to learn the basics of my camera. I'm struggling to know what to do if I arrive on a wedding day, or I don't know how to handle couples when they're in front of me and they just like, they look cute, but like they don't know how to like act normal. Like it's awkward when they're with me. So I can answer all those questions. We do virtual calls. And then if some of those students are like, hey, I want to do this in person and work with you, or have an opportunity to like see how you work with a couple, I'm starting to get into styled shoots and content days.
Okay.
And I have one coming up. I'm not sure when this episode would be released, so the ticket sales might be closed by the time it is. but I'm hosting my first content day, styled shoot, and overnight getaway retreat. So this is going to be for my girlies and boys. There's a couple boys coming who want to learn how to do the hands-on level of photography, get some good content, but also rest. And I'm a very like in touch with, hey, God's given us bodies and energy and a mind, and we need to like take care of all of that.
Mm.
We're not machines. We're not just like go, 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 shoot all these weddings, don't sleep, hustle, hustle.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's important to say, hey, let's like go on a hike in nature. Let's sit around a bonfire and talk with other creatives, not at a networking angle to get something out of them, but just to like hang out. And what are you struggling with? And what could be different in your business? Or what's your goal for this year? What's a dream you have outside of work? So I'm hosting an opportunity to do all that coming up in Hocking Hills. If anyone's interested, it's May 21st through 22nd.
Okay.
And we can like plug that in more later if you guys want to head to look for those tickets. But that's something I'm really passionate about, moving into this education space and doing, yes, the one-on-one mentorships, but also more of these like creative getaways and these opportunities to make good work, but also support yourself as you move through business and find that balance of work and life that actually is something fun and enjoyable.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. And I've never ever heard of a content retreat. So what a cool retreat.
I agree. Well, the other thing,
Yeah.
there's so much like content and like stimulation coming in at us at all times. Like we wake up, we grab our phone, get on social media, and you're seeing and getting inspired by how everyone else is doing it. And you're saying, oh, that person did that amazing photo shoot. Oh, look at that luxury wedding that I wasn't in.
Yeah.
And then all of that feeds, right? It feeds into us. And then we go, okay, well, then I have to be better than that person. So let me go and pretend like I'm better than that person and work like I'm better, and instead of saying we shouldn't look at the other person and go, that's my competition. Now I need to one up that person. We need to put all that to the side and be like, I'm so happy they shot a beautiful, amazing wedding and gave lifelong treasures to that couple. How amazing. I'm going to put that over there and just focus on what inspiration, what clients has God given me? How can I serve the people right in front of me and be grateful for who they are and not get distracted by like not having enough clients or the right kind of wedding or whatever you're like nervous about.
Right.
And just being like, let's just focus on what we've got and be grateful for that and then move forward and make something that starts here instead of out here, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the only competition is who we were yesterday. And that I feel like is what we're all about, celebrating other people and their victory stories. Like I am so excited to hear about this retreat, to hear about you doing mentorship work and starting the or getting into the education realm. And you had a really, really cool presentation. Was it a seminar earlier this year? Can you tell me a little bit about that? That is huge. And I just want to take a moment to like really just say, that's awesome. Like that is incredible. How did that go?
Tori, you're so sweet.
Tell me about it.
Yes. Okay. So if you're not sure what we're talking about, we basically, since I started getting into education, I've been kind of growing a little bit online and catching the attention of some other camera gurus. And so my place in Columbus, Ohio is close to a camera education center and store called Midwest Photo. Shout out to Midwest Photo. They're great. They do a lot of stuff for most of Ohio, Indiana. I think a lot of the, camera sales and stuff go through them. And they reached out to me and said that Canon, the camera brand that is huge, was interested in doing a class with me. And so they wanted to kind of offer an opportunity for photographers in the community who were not quite sure how to start getting into couples portraiture. They wanted to offer an opportunity for them to learn. So we worked together and I did a class on a Saturday at this really beautiful studio in Columbus with Canon and Midwest Photo. And I got to do a course on how to get creative couples portraits, how to make people feel comfortable, feel like themselves, and not just walk away with nice photos, but photos that actually tell a story about that couple. So I did a little teaching for about an hour on that. And then we had a chance to work with some models and test out new Canon gear. And I got to work with lots of photographers that day on learning how to master their camera settings, playing with different lenses, seeing what that looks like and making some really cool work. So it was a blast and such an honor. Canon's like a huge, I've been working with them for years, like as far as I buy all their cameras. So it was just an honor to be like approached in that way and to be seen as like a professional in my own city. Again, like I started as like a 14-year-old girl who was like before and like bought a silly little camera.
Well,
You know what I mean? And it's
yeah.
so cool to like watch it like and be like, wow, God, like this is where we're going.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I was just so proud of you. So I was going
Thank
to
you.
give you a shout out and point out to our listeners that India doesn't play around.
It was so fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, that's
Definitely
cool.
an honor.
So you got your education going, but you're still doing weddings and wedding photographies, and you've got some really cool weddings lined up, traveling and things like that.
Yes,
But
lots of weddings. Yes. Well, I would say at my core, I don't know if you are into the Enneagram stuff at all, but I think I'm an Enneagram 2 wing 3,
okay.
which means my like motivation is to like help people and work hard. And I think that's true. And all of it is centered around like helping someone. When it's a wedding, it's like I'm helping this couple remember their day and relive these moments forever. They're going to tell their kids, they're going to show these photos to their grandkids. Like this is not just like a trendy, cute thing to take a quick snap and post it on my own story on Instagram. This is about them and like making sure that they have these memories forever. And then when it comes to mentorship, it's the same kind of like, how can I help this person and serve them out of a place of like, I want them to have a successful business. I want them to learn how to use their camera and tell their own stories and start to offer services or even just know how to document their family on vacation, you know? So I love like that my business is so hands-on when it comes to like helping and serving because I feel like that really meets that need that I have of like, I want to help people. I want to make it fun. I want to serve you. The other thing I think we chatted with when we met at the Heart Conference because we love Evie and Lindsay and all that they do. My husband's in film, and something we're looking forward to this year is he has been working on a script for a TV show for a number of years, like since before I met him. And we're hoping to try to make some of that start to happen this year. And if that's the case, I want to be on set with him for that and help him on the production side as well as possibly acting in the show. So it could be really fun, but just like knowing that, again, that balance of like, yeah, I'm doing my creative thing and my business, and that's amazing. But how cool is it that I've got this spouse who's also a creative and that we can cross paths and I can say, hey, would you help me, photograph and film this wedding? And he's like, yeah. And then he can be like, do you want to act in my project? I'm like, yeah, totally.
of course, yeah.
So we're looking forward to getting the ball rolling with that series and just like being on set with him and creating another communal space of like telling a story that we really care about and hoping that that can help serve people as well. So that's something we're looking forward to.
That is awesome. And I'm going to be looking forward
We're going to have to get you on set.
Oh yeah, I'll come and do the behind the scenes,
Come on
or
over
whatever.
here, Tori.
But yes, and that's such a fun part too, is being, as someone acting, of course, is awesome, but also being just in on all of the production and watching something go from being on, well, even not on paper to life, but in your case, being in someone's head and hearing their passion and them talking about it, watching them, I guess like go with ideas and characters and like making it all like fleshed out and then putting it on paper and then watching that come to life is such an incredible experience. And so I am looking forward to hearing about how that goes and watching it come to life even more than it is now. And if you ever need any help, let me know. And also,
I will.
We just need to keep showing up and advocating for our creative lives and the creative lives of our partners, because that's only going to attract more of that same type of person and life into reality, into this world, into God's world. Like, I feel like he's working in so many ways with this entertainment industry. And I think, and I envision that in about 10 years, 5 years, it's not going to look the way it is right now. It's going to be, he's going to use it in a way that we can't even really imagine. But I just, I think it's important to say, don't quit. And also, keep showing up and advocating for creatives and our victories, whether they are on stage, behind the camera, graphics, writing, whatever. It's such an important life, an important role that we play. So, and it's only, with social media and stuff, I feel like it's only becoming more normal to be a creative. And that's such an awesome, beautiful thing. Well,
I think the reason that the creative industry gets such a bad rap is because most folks don't realize like you get what you put, like you get out what you put in kind of thing. And if you go in and say like, hey, God's given me a dream. I'm going to work hard. There are more opportunities than you could ever know.
Yes.
There's way more jobs in the creative industry than there ever has been before. There's social media managers, there's graphic designers, there's copywriters, there's all kinds of work. And yes, it is harder. And it is like when someone's like, I'm married to a filmmaker. I'm like, okay, we live in Ohio. Where are the films in Ohio? But you'd be surprised how many commercial projects, how many times he's gone out we got hired to do a TV show. We went to Alaska, we went to Nashville, Tennessee, we've been to New York to do filming, we've been to LA. Like, when we limit ourselves with this like scarcity mindset, we're limiting what God can do. We're saying, no, all I see is what's in front of me. All I see is that I'm from a small town and that I'm a creative. I'm one person here. I don't see anyone else around me. I'm just going to like forget all this and go like work at a gas station. And that's all I'll ever amount to. It's like, hey, you can pump gas and glorify the Lord. But if you've got that dream, maybe get out of that bubble a little, get out of that mindset a little and say, Lord, I'm not going to operate with what's in front of me and just what I see. I'm going to let you do your thing. And I'm going to trust that like there is way more of an abundance of what's possible in this life with hard work and with your will. And I'm just going to pray and work towards like receiving whatever is next. Yeah, it can be really hard at times too, but I just want to encourage anyone because I never ever thought I would be a full-time photographer married to a filmmaker and we'd actually like have dinner and we'd have food and we'd have a mortgage. It's cool to see that God's providing and that like it is possible. It's hard, but it's possible. But also it's like that choose your hard thing, right? Like there's always going to be a hard choice. And if you're something you really, really want to try, I would say do it, go for it because you only get one life, might as well jump in and be excited for what God has.
Yeah, I like that. Choose your hard. That's a nugget of wisdom there. Okay, so you have a YouTube channel. That's where I was going. And do you have a
Yes.
podcast also?
Yeah, so it's the same thing. I post the video version on YouTube and then you can listen to the same podcast on Spotify and Apple, I think.
Let's talk about that for a minute. I watched a little bit of the fashion stuff that you're doing. Tell me how you're finding some new inspiration with doing your YouTube channel and the podcast and how it relates to expressing yourself via clothes.
So I started a podcast this year. It's called India and Stuff. So the little tagline is like behind the scenes, in betweens, and all the other stuff. So one of the things that I'm passionate about, it's kind of like my hobby, is sustainable fashion. I love like fair trade fashion, thrifting. I love talking about ways we can move forward in the fashion industry, which is like expressing yourself in clothes and what you're wearing, but also not destroying our planet because there's a lot of negative stuff that comes with like fast fashion and everything. So I try to find the balance of like sharing those topics on my podcast in a way that's exciting and hopeful. Because I think a lot of times people can just be like, I can't believe you bought that sweater at Target. And it's like, okay, well, I did, or I don't have $1 million to buy from this fancy brand. So I like to kind of try to bridge the gap and say, hey, like we can make little choices every time, whether it's with food or shopping for clothes or our own like lifestyle that kind of promotes wellness or promotes something that helps God's earth, stay intact. So I just kind of like do that on my podcast a lot of the times is like decompress my own travels, my own journeys, and then talk a lot about thrifting and encouraging kind of a sustainable lifestyle in a holistic sense.
I love that you're also pouring into other people in that way. And it was really exciting for me when I found out that you had that because I just thought I was like, oh my goodness, this is so cool. It was another side of you. And if you're listening, you got to go follow India Jade. Her Instagram handle's India Jade Photo, right? That's because her stories are full of just that good hope. And I keep saying excitement, but you have so much energy. And I think that it's not only entertaining, but it also is uplifting. And you said hopeful. And no matter if you're talking about like, fashion or whatever, it's that vibe that you have. And so that resonance that you carry really does show what anyone can do, like you give it away so freely. And so you got to go follow her listeners. And then India, tell us where else they can find your work. Where's your website? And you mentioned your podcast, India and Stuff. Share all of the different places that we can find you online.
Yeah, thanks. You're so sweet. I appreciate that so much because it is hard sometimes to feel. I'm like, am I just shouting into the void? Am I being so silly that they're not going to take me seriously? But I'm like, I think I would rather be a scroll stopper with my silliness than just mask half of who I am and only ever be completely buttoned up and completely professional all the time online. I think we all see so much stuff that it can all look the same. And if you're looking for a photographer, you can just type in, photographer, and then you get 25 girls in a black blazer looking really cute and professional. It's like, that's awesome. But I'll be in my ratatouille pajamas eating SpaghettiOs and
Oh,
editing,
that's so
like
cute.
I want to provide something that's also authentic and real and true to me. Because then when I show up on your wedding day or your session, it's like, we have something to talk about. They're like, oh, I saw that silly thing you posted, or oh, that's so funny. You love dancing with your cats. That's hilarious. Or like, I don't know. So I always encourage people, be yourselves, whether that's on the screen or in person. Like, people are really craving to know authenticity in a new way. And I don't know. I just appreciate you saying that because I love it when people just are themselves, like, be real, be silly. Everyone, Beyonce, at the end of the day, she's still got to go to the bathroom. Like, she got to take her makeup off too. Like, everyone's a person. Anyway,
My
it's a
mama,
lot of
I was
fun.
raised
So,
here I am talking about my mama again. The Alabama in me is coming out. But
yes.
my mom always said, they put their britches on the same way we put on ours. So, I think you're
Yes,
right.
honey.
That authenticity is very important. And, you're the photographer, but like as a creative, I just imagine the couples really being just comfortable in front of the camera with you. And it really leans into that candid style that is harder. I mean, people think candid's like when you're not looking, but no, that is the hard
Yeah.
stuff to get, is when it looks beautiful,
Mm.
but it's also natural and authentic. And so your personality and having that flow so freely I only imagine it allows them to show more of themselves and to, be more comfortable, whether they're in a wedding dress and tuxedo.
Yeah.
When those moments are happening, it's usually not an everyday scenario where you're like in that type of dress. So it takes someone as willing to be free to get those amazing shots. And I cannot imagine it being easy, but you make it look easy. So I definitely want to applaud. So
you're so sweet.
again,
Thank you.
this is an audio podcast. I like to share the video version, and I will have some of your photos and stuff. But if our listeners want to check out your work or get to know you more, where do you want them to go to find you?
Yeah, thank you. Obviously Instagram, India Jade Photo is my professional photography account. India and Stuff is my personal thrifted stuff. I do a lot of silly, goofy videos, my travel videos there, my thrifted fits. I think we're on TikTok at the McCues or McCuties.
Oh,
I'll have to double check and report back. And then we're on YouTube as well for my podcast, which is on Spotify, Apple. That is also India and Stuff under the McCue's channel. And then my website, if you are looking for a photographer anywhere in the States or beyond, or if you're right here in Columbus, Ohio, it's indiajadephoto.com. And that's the same if you are looking for a photography mentor or you want to hear more about the getaway retreat. That would be indiajadephoto.com/edu.
Awesome. And I'm going to go and look up the McCues. So that's, I guess, a channel with your husband. That is so cool.
We just like being silly on the internet.
Love it.
Tori, we got to hang out.
We
got to hang out with all of our husbands and like all the creative energy. I can't wait.
Well, I'm just so honored that you took the time to talk to me today and share your victory story. Is there anything else you want to add?
I think overall, just keep going, find your creative people. I think that community aspect is so huge and something that's always evolving for us. The Heart University, like we've mentioned already, has been a great place to find some fellow creatives. That's been one of those invaluable things that I'm really glad that I was a part of and am a part of. So they have a great podcast. I think it's The Heart and Hustle. We love them. And just finding opportunities in your own zip code. I always tell people that one of the best things we can do is serve the zip code around us and just say, hey, how can I make the creative community in Columbus, Ohio better? Oh, I could like teach at this thing. I could host a getaway. I could even do a low cost. Hey, I'm going to be at this coffee shop. I'm putting it on my story and say, let's network. Hey, any creative, why don't you come from 1 to 2 on a Saturday and we'll just chat. Like finding ways to find people. Yeah, find ways to connect with people in front of you and don't write it off as like, well, I'm only in Ohio or I'm only in Alabama. There's not very many creatives here. just say, you know what, there are people with a dream. And even if I'm the first one to step out and vocalize that dream, odds are there's a middle schooler somewhere who's looking at her camera going, I wonder if I could like do something with that. Or I wonder if I could start a vlog, or if I could be a dancer, if I could be a screenwriter. Like, you never know who you're going to inspire. And sometimes our own mental capacity is like limiting what we can do. So I just encourage people to put that to the side, take some time in silence and solitude with the Lord, and be like, all right, Lord, what do you have? I just need your voice right now. And then run it by your closest circle of people, and then take a step in faith.
Oh man, that was really good. That's such an easy way to get with people in your zip code, like you said. And I bet you'll meet some new people and maybe start a new friendship or something out of that. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for speaking to me at the conference and saying, hey, I'm India.
Yeah.
You did that. And that was what sparked this conversation, like later on. So if you're listening, be that person that speaks up and says hi, or that brings attention to other creatives in your community and things like that, because you never know where it'll lead you. And at the very least, you're going to be inspired by other people doing their thing and being them in their way that only they can be. And that's going to give you permission to be further yourself and be who God created you to be. So,
100%.
Have the conversations, share the victory stories, and be excited for your fellow creatives, because the world needs more of that light and those creative people. So thank you for coming on.
I agree. Of course. This was such an honor. Thank you.
India, I'm looking forward to seeing all that you do. And creatives, go follow India and find her YouTube channel, find her TikTok profiles, and and listen to her podcast. I'm going to go do it. So we'll all have to follow up maybe in a few months or something, and hear how the retreat and stuff went. I'm looking forward to hearing how that goes.
Yeah. Thank you, Tori. Thanks, guys.
All right. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks for joining us for this week's episode of the Contagious Victories podcast. If the show inspired you to share your own victory story, I'm here to tell you the world deserves to hear it. Submit it to me online at toriblackman.com. Review and subscribe if that feels right. Telling a friend about the show helps Contagious Victories to grow.